Okay. That is, folks, you've joined us as I was asking Dr. Stephen Hassan where he's at right now, and he's a nomad like me. We're waiting for a few seconds for people to get on. I know it takes a few seconds, and then, it takes the AI of Substack a few seconds to recognize when to actually start hitting record. Stephen and I met 10 years ago when we were given the accidental invites to Aspen. And we were both there and like, what are we doing here? And we were given this, we were there for the weekend for this select group of folks. And back then, Dr. Stephen Hassan, who, by the way, is an expert on cults, on deprogramming cult members and mind experts. I mean, I'm not making this up. How to get people out of cults. Why do people join cults? That's what Dr. Stephen has spent his life researching. And he wrote a book, The Cult of Trump, in the first Trump administration, talking about, there you go, he called it, talking about specifically how MAGA is a cult, how it will be a dangerous cult, how it can be a violent cult. And this was before the violent insurrection. And I was telling Dr. Stephen right before we pressed live, well, you did your best to warn the powerful and the elite. I did my best to warn. No one listened to us. And now they're finally saying, as of this week, this might be a fascist cult. We're like, huh. And speaking about fascism, folks, even fascism is a cult. It depends on mass psychosis. And we've seen this. We've seen this in Nazi Germany, but we've also seen this in the United States of America through white supremacy, the stories, the myths, the conspiracies, to the point where even, yes, some people of color are like, well, I'll go along with that. I'll be safe. I'm the good one. And so I've been really, I've been trying to get Stephen on for a while, but we've been so busy. So Stephen, pleasure seeing you after 10 years. I wish your book, your work, your life experience wasn't that relevant. I wish we could talk about other things, but I brought you on to talk about how can we deprogram not just the MAGA cult, Stephen, but how can we deprogram America from its current mass psychosis? It's a lot. But before we get into it, let's talk about your experience, because your story itself is fascinating. How'd you get into this work?
Right. So thanks for having me on. We were actually not accidentally invited. The State Department counterterrorism was trying to figure out ISIS recruitment online, and they wanted to hear from people who might have something to say about it, which we did. In any case, so what I want to say is that I was a nice Jewish boy from Queens. I grew up 1.3 miles from Donald Trump's childhood home. This is Holocaust Remembrance Day, so I wanted to say I'm Jewish, even though my name is spelled like I'm a Muslim. I'm not. And I got
You
recruited
can be
into a.
you could be Muslim for a day. We'll take you.
I, I,
You're
I,
my monotheistic cousin from another mother.
Thank you. Perfect. Love it. So I was at Queens College. I was a creative writing major, and I basically got deceptively recruited into a front group of the Moonies. In 1974, the same month Patty Hearst was abducted by the Symbionese Liberation Army, I was deceptively recruited and brainwashed to become a right-wing fanatic fascist. And was told by Moon that we're going to infiltrate the government, how God hates democracy, it's satanic, and we need a theocracy. And when we take power in America, we'll amend the Constitution and make it a capital offense for people to break our rules. And I thought it was a great idea. Me, educated about the Holocaust, read 1984, et cetera, et cetera. And that's one point I want to say. People think that only stupid people, uneducated people from bad families can have their minds hacked. No, it starts with deception, can be hypnosis, sleep deprivation. Right now online, it's happening in mass levels. And basically, what I learned was Chinese communist brainwashing models from the 50s. Robert J. Lift and Margaret Singer helped me to get out of the Moonies because I was sure I wasn't brainwashed. But then I looked at the brainwashing strategies that Lifton wrote about, and they fit the Moonies. And it was like, this is weird. We're God, they're Satan, but we're doing the same brainwashing. And it wasn't until the following day that I realized Moon was a liar. And if he was
Mm,
a liar, then he couldn't be the Messiah. And he wasn't trustworthy. So why was I working 18 to 21 hours a day, 7 days a week, recruiting for him and doing political stuff for him? And I became a whistleblower when I exited, and I helped a congressional subcommittee investigation looking into, get this, Korean CIA activities in the US, because the Moonies were involved with the
wow.
Korean CIA. And I never imagined I'd be doing this work for 50 years, 50. And so I've written 5 books. And when I was asked by my agent to write The Cult of Trump, my first response is, I'm not political. I'm a mental health guy. And they were like, yeah, but who could do the book better than you? And I was like, and aren't you going to regret it if you don't write it? And I was like, you're right. I will regret it. So I did it. And it's really held up. Uh,
It has
Everything
held
that
up.
I
I
said.
you sent it to me 10 years ago, and I'm like, and I tried my best to promote it then, and I said, folks, you don't know what's about to come down the pipeline. Don't listen to me. Who am I? Listen to Steven. He's a doctor. He spent 5 decades on this, and this was written 10 years ago, folks. Read the book, The Cult of Trump. You'll
Yeah.
read it. It's still it's yeah, sure, because it was written 10 years ago. Maybe some of the points, some of the current references, but doesn't matter. The spine of the book is as relevant now, even more relevant now than it was written 10 years ago.
Yeah, I got it right. I'm happy to say, and we weren't sued because everything was triple vetted by lawyers, of course. But I really got censored when the book came out. Everyone wanted to interview me in the media. And when I said to the publicist that Simon and Schuster, what's going on? Because she said everyone wanted to interview me for the book. She said, well, I have a friend in TV who says if Stephen Hassan wants to say the Attorney General of the United States is an Opus Dei and that's a destructive cult and get on TV, he's got another thing coming to him, which was very interesting. They didn't say if he wants to call the president a cult leader. It was about Opus Dei. And Opus Dei is a right-wing Catholic authoritarian cult. They're the ones responsible for the Supreme Court hacking through the Federalist Society. They're the ones who are responsible for the Heritage Foundation Project 2025. And my thesis for the book is that there are authoritarian cults that comprise the cult of Trump, and that Trump has the stereotypical profile of cult leaders, which was using Eric Fromm's criteria of malignant narcissism,
Mm.
which he came up with about Hitler. And it's worked ever since. So I compared Trump with Jim Jones, Moon, and Hubbard of Scientology. But here's the thing that I want people to understand. We're human beings, we're social beings, we're emotional beings, and get past your ego that you're too smart to be lied to or tricked or brainwashed. We need to really understand psychoeducation is the answer to your question, Wajahat. How do we deprogram people? It's really giving information in a way that isn't going to trigger their cult defenses, their cult identity defenses, and empowering them to think and reality test for themselves. So the technique is really respectful questioning, not arguing with logic and facts and pointing a finger and telling people they're in a cult.
Can I ask you for because that's how I know you, right? I know you because of 10 years ago, the cult, the book, the cult of Trump, and many people might be saying, oh, that's just a flippant language. You're just using that to dehumanize and demonize. But specifically, you use the word cult. And if you can, because what's common to us isn't common to everyone else, why did you use the word cult? What differentiates, say, a cult from a very, oh, I don't know, passionate group?
So I don't know if your people can see this chart. It's backwards, but it's called the influence continuum. It's on my website, freedomofmind.com, for free. You can download the PDF. And I talk about ethical groups and ethical cults all the way to authoritarian mind control cults. So when you hear the cult film classic Rocky Horror Picture Show, or you hear the cult of Mac, the term is used to describe passionate, devoted membership, whether you're following a football team that's going to go to the Super Bowl or a political party or whatever. But the key thing is, if it's ethical, there's informed consent, respect for your conscience, critical thinking, free will to leave, checks and balances. So there's a whole set of criteria for healthy. And my concern are the authoritarian mind control cults, and I define it by controlling behavior, information, thoughts, and emotions.
Can you do
I
that
urge
again? Behavior?
it's called the BITE model to remember it: behavior control, information control, thought control, and emotional control.
God.
It's what I did my doctoral dissertation on. And it's used by trafficking experts, labor and sex trafficking, because it's how traffickers control and recruit, indoctrinate, and control people, and Chinese communist brainwashing. And I'm mentioning those two because that's what works with MAGA, I found, because they will believe China brainwashes. They will believe pimps and traffickers brainwash people. So the question is, what are the techniques? What are the models that fit? And that's where we can educate people about these other groups and then ask them what they think about it.
Can I
Ask
ask you
them
this
to go
question?
back in time before they ever heard of Trump. When did they start taking him seriously? When did they actually start believing him? And you can help people using the bite model backtrack to see how their mind got hacked. And people are like,
So
damn, I
be, be,
forgot.
before we get to that, let's go back. Let's take the DeLorean to 2015, 2016. Now, you've spent at this time 4 decades. You were in a cult. You got out of a cult. You've researched it. You're an expert on it. You're looking at the rise of Donald Trump, and you now see him being elected. What what were some of the traits, characteristics of his supporters that made you then look at your bite model?
So when I first was asked to do the book, the only thing I knew as a New Yorker was Donald Trump was a malignant narcissist, because I had learned and studied other cult leaders. And of course, I knew Eric Fromm. He wrote Escape from Freedom, Art of Loving. He was a social psychologist from World War II era. So I knew he was a malignant narcissist, and I knew he ran his business like a cult of personality. But what I didn't understand was that there was Russia and authoritarian cults that have been grooming Trump and programming Trump, like the whole thing with him on the Apprentice, on Mark Burnett. He's head of Christian dominionism of media. So this guy has an agenda, and it was about cultivating a profile of a successful businessman, which Donald Trump is anything but. He's an uneducated person who's had endless bankruptcies and doesn't know his ass from his elbow from anyone who's done business with him, calling him things like morons and imbeciles. Even his mother said he's an idiot, if I can quote her. But
And for those who don't know, Mark Burnett is the mega producer, and they say without Mark Burnett, Donald Trump wouldn't be president because Burnett and Zucker were the ones who essentially created this narrative, it
exactly.
revived Donald Trump to the new generation through Apprentice. And
Yeah.
Mark Burnett is married to Roma Downey, and Roma Downey, can you just connect the dots for
No,
folks?
no, do it, man. You've got it.
Roma Downey, of Touched by an Angel, very famous. What people don't know, she's also the president of Lightworkers Media, the faith and family division of MGM. And then once Mark Burnett married her, he became kind of like this. I don't know if he's born again, but kind of reimagined himself as this type of born again person. So they're the ones producing a lot of this. I'm just going to go ahead and say it: white Christian nationalist adjacent content, right? Not really nationalist, but kind of Christian dominionism,
Dominionists, yeah.
trying to take the culture aspect of it. When we talked about the Seven Mountains Mandate earlier today, the Seven Mountains Mandate is very explicitly for white Christian nationalists. They believe there's seven mountains: education, art and culture, media, government, business, and two others. And that if we control these seven mountains, we can then have Christian dominionism. And so through culture, very kind of specifically, folks, if you follow Roma Downey has been kind of pushing this. And then after she married Mark Burnett's like, all right, my wife's into this. Now I'll be into this. Continue.
Yeah, so what I want people to understand, what I said in the book, is that this has been a 50-year project. And I go back to my time in the Moonies when I was learning, because the Moon was in bed with Paul Weyrich and the Christian right and William Lind and all of this basically using religious groups to do political machinations. And so what I want people to understand is this has been going up, this has been a process for decades to dismantle the checks and balances, to identify key individuals and target them and recruit them and indoctrinate them to join the cause. But the thing also I want to say is that Americans' DNA is not the same as people who are raised in the Soviet Union or China. We know what it's like to have human rights and at least to be aware that it's protected by the Constitution, free speech, assembly, etc. And so the key thing is psychoeducation to all of us who are noticing this and wanting to stop it. And in my opinion, we should be reaching out to family, friends, coworkers who've been MAGA. We may have blocked them, we may have called them names, but I'm saying please reach out to them, be warm, be friendly, and just ask open-ended questions. Find common ground because people are leaving and we want to welcome people to leave. We don't want to say, you should have listened to me. I told you so. We want to be like, come be an American and fight this extremist fascist regime that's wanting to split us, polarize the left and the right. Just be anti-authoritarian and be pro-democracy and human rights. And we have the higher ground morally, but we have to be strategic and not just message to ourselves, but to message to the people who can put the pressure on the GOP, who can put the pressure on the Supreme Court, who gave Trump a pass in their shadow docket.
A
They need
pass
to be
after
held
pass after
accountable.
pass after pass.
Yeah. Over and over again, and they're not doing their obligation. They swore to uphold the Constitution, and now they're going expressly against the Constitution. I think they should be impeached. We need
You
to.
know, we should expand the court. But speaking about the role, see, Hitler would have loved to have Fox News. They have Fox News. They have, in addition to Fox News, it's not just Fox. It's Fox. It's Newsmax. It's 4chan. It's Twitter. It's Discord. It's YouTube. Talk to us about how that media warfare was used in part by MAGA and the right wing to create this cult.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to come back to our meeting time when we met and we're at this 2-day event. Do you remember a presentation by Nova
I think
Spivak?
so. Yes, yes,
So
yes.
Nova Spivak had been hired. He gave a presentation. He had an AI supercomputer that was tracking all open source messaging on social media. And he gave a report to us. And he said, if you want to understand how ISIS's recruitment, think STDs. Does that come back to you that he said
Yes,
that?
yes, I remember.
And we were like looking at each other going, sexually transmitted diseases? What? And he said,
This
the
was about
more
11 years ago, folks. This was
yeah,
11 years ago in Aspen.
this was August of 2015, and he said the more sex you have with someone with syphilis, the more likely you are to get it. He said, if you understand that principle, that's how ISIS recruits. They identify people in gaming platforms, in dating sites, etc. They find out information about them, and now it's really easy to buy information on the dark web about most people. And then they swarm them, which is the online version of blob bombing, which is what the Moonies did in the 70s in person. But they swarm people and then they bring them to Discord servers and to private sites where they keep them up all night and they start indoctrinating them in a step-by-step way where people don't understand who's behind this, who's really doing this, what's the agenda, etc.
I can you just pause there for a second because I just
Sure.
want to make a connection. I spent a long time researching violent extremist groups. And, I wrote Fearing the Roots of the Islamophobia Network in America, which is why they brought me to talk about these people who, talking about the intersection of love, but also the intersection of hate. The Islamophobes who also are anti-immigrant, who are also anti-LGBT and also anti-woman and also fill in the blank, right? And so we're talking about the recruitment and what really motivates them. And when you look at former extremists, and we talk to them, right? Former KKK members, former Nazi members, former Islamophobes, former cartel members. The DNA of many of these people who join into, say, an extremist group is very similar. If you take away the window dressing, right? They are people who are seeking a community. They're seeking purpose. They're seeking meaning. All politics is personal. Something inside them personally keeps them, if you will, detached, like you said, from the mainstream. Someone comes in, especially through online, recruits them, gives them a message of affirmation, says you too can become a hero of this narrative. Hero story, black and white. You are the savior. That's the bad guy. Join us. If you do X, Y, and Z, you will be rewarded. You'll move up in the rank. And you look at it and you're like, oh, wow. ISIS is very similar to KKK, is very similar to white supremacists, is very similar to the Moonies in the sense when you look at cults and
Yeah.
extremist groups, right? And there's something that you were just saying, and I want to latch into it before we continue, is what Trump did. And I want your thoughts on this, is he preyed on people's feelings of anxiety and feelings of insecurity and said that I will make you feel great again. Can you talk to us about that, how that's so important, what they latch onto, which is already existing in people?
Yeah, so I need to say, honestly, that I don't think Trump is a mastermind. I don't think he's capable of fifth dimensional chess and all the other
I agree.
BS. I think Steve Bannon and people like Steve Miller are telling him what to say, etc., and what to do. And frankly, there's so many points I want to make about this, but I need to finish the
No,
frame
go
if
ahead.
you
You go
don't
ahead. I
mind,
didn't mean to interrupt you.
Wajahat.
Go ahead.
That
Continue.
that Nova Spivak talked about how we can disrupt the command and control of ISIS online by distracting them, how he could track memes with his supercomputer, et cetera, et cetera. And he then went to DC and demoed this model, wasn't bought. And I said to him, Nova, there's a presidential election like next year. This is really powerful stuff. What are you going to do? He said, oh, Hillary's people only want to pay us $10,000 a month. We can't pay our electrical bill for that. And I said, I hope you're not going to go to the dark side. And he said, I don't want to, but I have partners. And then he sold the company. And I can't say this is a fact because I don't know it as a fact, but I believe the Mercers, Cambridge Analytica, Zuckerberg used that model and just kept enhancing the sophistication of mimetic warfare and mind control online. That said, back to your question about digital recruitment, etc. When people have a strong concentration, absorption, they go into an altered state, often called the zone, where
Mm.
they're getting into writing, or they're musicians, or they're artists, or sports figures. But when you get into a zone, it feels really great. It's often super productive. But if there's somebody outside of you with an agenda to put beliefs in your head, you're remarkably vulnerable. to these ideas getting put in your head. And when you are doom scrolling on your social media and you're not aware of how these are emotionally latent stories and messages, etc., and some overt ASMR and hypnotic programming happening, people are losing their critical faculties, and this is part of brainwashing. How do you brainwash someone? You want to confuse them. You want to overwhelm them. You want to disorient them. You want to make them anxious, uncertain, even if they had very stable, strong identities, strong family, etc. It's remarkable how much you can manipulate people emotionally and psychologically. Because
Stephen, a pandemic would help. A pandemic would really help accelerate that.
supercharged it. Yep, supercharged it. Absolutely. But I also want to just mention when Donald Trump was contending for the GOP back in 2015, I think it was December of 2000, he said he wanted a total Muslim ban, back to your
Yep.
point about Islamophobia. And I was blogging at the time at Huffington Post, and I said, uh, ISIS's greatest recruiter, Donald Trump.
No,
Saying
no, that's right. That's
he
right.
he wants a Muslim ban. What will make more people want to rush to join ISIS than a fascist statement like that? Racist.
And if you recall, when I was there and we were at that meeting 11 years ago, that's exactly what I said based on the research that extremists help other extremists. They're two sides of the same coin. When ISIS says the West hates Islam, which is why we are your defenders and you must join us, Donald Trump comes out and says Muslim ban. I think Islam is a problem, and you're like, wonderful. They help each other out, right? But terrible for the rest of us, the majority stuck in the middle. But what Trump
Exactly.
does, and this is where I might disagree with you. I agree with you. He's not smart. He's ignorant, but he's a really good carnival barker, and he's a creature of media. He knows how to get the eyeballs on him. Even in the 80s and 90s, you're a New Yorker. You know that these talk shows that used to host him, they thought he was a freak. They used to laugh at him, but like he's good TV. He'll come in like a carnival barker. The camera will be on him, and he was also a good bullshitter. He created the fiction of the art of the deal. He sold it. He didn't even write the book, folks,
Right.
but he positioned himself so well with this branding that when I was watching Home Alone 2 as an 11-year-old, when Macaulay Culkin visits New York, who does he meet, Stephen? He meets Dr. Donald Trump, right? And then The Apprentice comes and talk about media and media manipulation, right? False narratives, stories, which are so important, like you said, in the creation of a cult. Mark Burnett, who I'll never forget, Zucker, who I'll never forget, realized this man was an idiot and decided, you know what? We can bring out Trump because he has the image, the narrative, the story. So then they rehabilitated him for the New Age through Apprentice. And folks, just to show you how it's all smoke and mirrors that can, fake, fool even smartest minds, like Steven said. Television does it all the time. Some of the associate producers of The Apprentice said that once they actually went to Trump Towers, it was a shithole, Stephen. It was a shithole. And then with lights and camera and a budget, they made it look shiny and nice, right? So it was like, if you really think about it, what television and reality TV did is essentially participate in the active deception of America.
Exactly.
If you think I'm being out of pocket here, let me know.
Not at all. I totally agree. And people worked on the show talking about a shithole, talked about him shitting in his diapers, and they had to regularly clean him up because he couldn't control himself.
So, I mean, this is, so here we have, and someone asked this question. I think Tay asked this question. Well, what happens after Trump dies? What happens to the cult?
It's a really good question, and we know that Teal picked Vance, and Musk wants, Vance, and they have this whole network state, freedom cities, tech
Absolutely.
bro billionaire nonsense with long-termism and transhumanism and all of their agenda and such. And the point is I don't know, and I don't know that anybody knows, but what I do know is that there's more of us than them, and we have more smart people. We just need to understand correctly, as you've correctly diagnosed it, and I've correctly diagnosed it. Once we know the disease, then we know how to help. And that is, from my point of view, psychoeducation that starts with the people who are willing to listen to us, family, friends, educators, media, influencers, etc. And then we need to do trainings and we need to teach people how to interact with folks. And we need people who have the funds and the are the influencers. I went to a fundraiser for Jamie Raskin on Friday. He came up to Boston, and I said, more celebrities are speaking out. Wouldn't it be great if we could pair celebrity with a former MAGA person who's speaking out, and the celebrity would put more attention by pairing? And he said, great idea. So I'm putting it out there. If any influencers are listening to this, find someone who's like a legit former MAGA and ask to do a live together or do some short recording and put it on social media so that we're encouraging more people who were captured by the cult of Trump to know time to leave.
I do it actually. Someone just mentioned, several people are mentioning this. Lev Parnas. If you would have told me 2 years ago I'd ever talk to Lev, I'm like, shut up. Lev Parnas is scum. I've said this to Lev to his face. A former Trump, member, a person who says openly, I was part of the cult. That's what he says. His words. He goes, I was literally in a cult. I thought this guy was the Messiah. I was all in. With Lev's own words. And then the cult turned on him and he went to jail and his eyes open and he's still on supervised release. And he's like, man, I can't believe I wasted my time there. I'm going to do everything in my power to bring this guy down. Now, I get some heat, Stephen, for coming on with Lev. But my relationship with him vis-a-vis Substack for the past 6 months, I can only judge people based on their actions. I'm not God. I don't know their intentions. But Lev so far has been on the level with me. He only comes on when he has the goods. He never comes on when he's nothing confirmed. And so far, whenever we talk, he says, I just want to dismantle this Trump regime. It's terrible for America. I went through it. He calls himself essentially a former cult member. You see Ro Khanna dealing with Thomas Massie, where I disagree with Massey on a lot, but I give Massey credit when it comes to being consistent on his morals and principles when it comes to the Epstein files and
Right.
when it comes to no war, right? And you could see an alliance. And now you're seeing a fissure. And I'm all about expanding these fissures, right? And when people say, well, Waj, what happens if these people are using you? Again, I'm not God. I don't know their intentions and their end game, but I'm going to use them. I'm going to be open with you all. They're using me. Okay. I'm using you. I'm literally going to use you to dismantle fascism and Trump and MAGA, right? So talk to us about strategically using, specifically, I'm because this is a racist country, white Trump voters in Minnesota right now filming themselves saying, I'm pissed, I didn't vote for this, get the F out. I think there's a major fissure there, Stephen, that we can use.
I totally agree with you. And honestly, Wajahat, I think we agree more than we disagree at all. And when people ask me, why did you go on Joe Rogan? I'm like, because he invited me and he has a huge audience. And I was glad that I went on Joe Rogan. That was also 10 years ago,
I had no idea
2015.
you went on Joe Rogan, but 10
Yeah.
years ago, Rogan was not as nutty. So
Correct, but the point is, I went on Megyn Kelly when the cult of Trump came out. She asked me on. She made me take the book down from the backdrop of my camera, but she
that's
asked
weird.
me about cults, and people gave me heat. Why did I go on Megyn Kelly? And the answer is because maybe people would hear something that I said, know that I exist, and it might stimulate some critical thinking and reality testing,
Was that was
etc.
that 10 years ago? And 10 years ago, folks, just to let you know, Megyn Kelly was excised by MAGA and was given a show on NBC News. Uh, but this is why I got invited to Piers Morgan. People say the same thing to me. I think I'm going on his show tomorrow. And people say, why do you subject yourself to that masochism? And it's exhausting. It's masochistic. But I'll tell you, Stephen, I tell people that, when I travel, And just unfortunately, this is the way the world works. And it's a good, it's a good back and forth argument that I have with myself. Why put myself through it? Is it worth it? But so many people watch that show, Stephen, and so many people loathe fascism and loathe racism. They're like, in the airports, I get a lot of people saying, "Oh, I saw you in Piers Morgan. Good job, bro."
So I'm with you. So the point is I think we need a big tent, and we have to be a little bit more open to interacting with people who don't agree with everything that we say, but to get the central message out that we're anti-fascist and pro-democracy, we're pro-human rights, rule of law, and so I'm with you. If I'm asked to go on shows, I'll go on unpopular shows. I don't want to promote things
Yeah.
that are extreme, so I say no to some of those. But I really support this perspective, and I'm open to changing my mind too. I'd say, and I've listened to you, Ajat, where you say, "Hey, listen, I'm just going off the data that I have. If there's new information, let me have it, and I'll consider it." And I think that in this age of massive disinformation and AI on the web is getting filled with bogus stuff. Humans need experts they can trust to be responsible, reliable, transparent. And that's what we can do. We can say, we don't know it all, but this is how it strikes us. This is what we've studied. And this is my take on it. And I think that that is what is going to attract more people to trust experts who've done their homework.
Janet has a question. It's a good question. And folks, this is a red line. Everyone has their own personal red lines. Just be honest. Some people say, I can't do that show. I can't do that. I can't do this. And I completely respect that. Other people say, well, I can't do that. I can't do that, but I'll do this. At the end of the day, though, the reality is, and since this is Holocaust Remembrance Day, right? You had mass psychosis of a nation in Nazi Germany. And after Hitler killed himself like a coward, and after the Allied powers won, many of those people had to rebuild. And they had to rebuild with people who sat there and marched with Hitler and then later said, oh my God. Now, some people would say, you wear that damn Nazi hat for the rest of your life, I'm done with you. Other people, unfortunately, couldn't do that because literally, probably their family and their neighbor, right? It's very difficult. And we're going to have to go through this, folks. This is going to be even for me, it's going to be very difficult, right? Because some of these people are waking up now. Some of these people are cowards and opportunists who realize, oh, the MAGA money train is ending. I'm not God. I don't know their intentions, right? But talk to us about the deprogramming of the mass psychosis, because I think history rhymes. You saw this in Germany. Uh, what's going to
It's
happen in America? Suppose, inshallah, Trump dies, and suppose MAGA fissures. And of course, that doesn't mean it's going to go away, but suppose it fissures. How do we deprogram with the mass psychosis?
So I want to say that Dr. Bandy X. Lee, who edited The Dangerous Case of Donald Trump, wrote a book on Trump contagion. And it's part of our brain that we connect and we reality test through people we identify with. And if we're online and we're in a social media silo, our brain adapts to that environment. So for me, educating people about how the brain works, how social psychology works is definitely a piece of it. But the other thing that I want to emphasize is I got recruited into the Moonies, they lied to me. They said they were students, they weren't. I asked them if they were part of a religion, they said not at all. They lied to me. So the thing that I tell my everybody is, hey, back the younger Steve at age 19 didn't believe he was joining a cult. He thought his girlfriend had dumped him. 3 women were flirting with him, and he thought he would get lucky. That's what was in young Steve's mind. He was not a joiner at all, but my mind got hacked. So the key thing is to say to people, be in the here and now. If you look back, you can say, if I knew then what I know now, I never would have gotten involved. I never would have married that person. I never would have taken that job. I never would have been involved. But the key thing is, what are they doing now? And that they're not BSing you, that they're for real. And if they did do harm, that they are accountable and say, I did harm and I'm sorry. I think that's important too. But the key is educating all the people who are listening now. You need to understand the key things like the influence continuum, the bite model, Fromm's malignant narcissism. And I do social media posts where we're teaching people not to attack the leader, the doctrine, or the group head on with logic or with facts, but to have a respectful, warm, curious posture, asking questions, pointing at other groups that are brainwashing and mind control, and asking people to go back in time to when they first thought that Trump was a good thing. And what were they thinking? Because when I asked that question, people were like, my first memory of Donald Trump was he was an asshole, or he was an arrogant prick, or he was a misogynist. And I don't go yippity doo dah. I say, oh, that's really interesting. So you know that that's how you thought of him. So track back. What was it that started making you think that he was qualified to run the United States? Was it a politician? Was it a podcast? Was it Fox News? Like what was it? And when people start remembering back, you can track how their mind got bent. And it's often by getting people to do behaviors that we then rationalize, justify to feel good about. And a big technique is going to a rally and the music, or giving a donation, or buying something, because that's a behavior that connects you to the cult. But in
And
the
yeah,
end,
because it's in group, right? In
yeah,
group, out group,
yeah,
community.
yeah.
And we're social animals.
Right. But if you ask someone in MAGA, hey, have you ever seen any documentaries about destructive cults? They may say, yeah, I saw a movie on Jim Jones and People's Temple. Ask them what they thought of it. What do you think about parents putting cyanide lace flavor aid in their children's mouths while Jim Jones was saying it's not going to hurt and they're screaming? I'm just curious.
You
And
know,
you get people to connect dots.
there's two things that you said right now, and I just want to connect it. My wife, who's a family med doctor, before COVID, believe it or not, I was worried about vaccine hesitancy. I read that the World Health Organization in 2019 said it was a top 10 global threat. And just connecting the dots at that time, I'm like, this is not good. What happens if there was a pandemic? So I used to be a contributing op-ed writer for the New York Times. I used to make a pitch, and I talked about how we combat vaccine hesitancy pre-COVID. My wife, a family med doctor, I interviewed her for the piece, and she said, "Listen, when these people come in, they trust me. So there's a trust there because I'm their doctor. If I come in and attack them and say they're stupid, they're not going to listen to me. So I have to be committed to kind of a long-term engagement where I open their brain to the possibility that I might be right and they might be wrong. And once I do that, and because of the trusting relationship and because I ask these kind of open-ended questions, and like you're saying, I take them down, I lead them. They walk, but I lead them, and then they get to themselves and they're like, oh, okay, you're right. You know what? I was misinformed. I was duped. You're right. Vaccines are good. Now, the second point, I'm listening to a lot of Trumpers in Minnesota, and I'm looking at a lot of these video clips that are going viral of white Trumpers getting pissed off. And what they're saying, Stephen, is this is not what I voted for. They're lying to you. ICE isn't going after immigrants. They're killing white people and black people. Now they want to take away my guns. And I think the lying aspect of it, the fact that they've literally lied to our faces about the evidence we've seen with our eyeballs when it comes to the murder of Renee Nicole Good, then followed it right up by lying to us about the murder of Alex Preddy, that can be a cognitive break moment
Definitely.
where they're lying to me.
That's what woke me up. Honestly, in my deprogramming, I was a fanatic. And the ex-members in my deprogramming handed me one of Moon's printed speeches because I was a leader, so I recognized the document. They said, just read this and tell us what you think. And Moon in this document was talking to congressmen and senators how surprised he is that anyone could believe that a Korean could brainwash an American because he respects Americans so much. And he's surprised at these accusations. And when I read it, I had the first critical thought in 2.5 years. I said, what a liar. Because I had been with Sun Myung Moon in person, hearing him say how superior the Koreans were, how pathetic the Americans were. And it was it. But once I got that into my consciousness, he's a liar. Then I said, he can't be the Messiah because we
There you go.
teach God is a God of truth, and he's not trustworthy. And so then what am I doing? Why am I in this group? And I'm not kidding, Wajahat. I felt like I was in a dark room and someone opened the blinds and the sunlight came in. It felt like a house of cards going plop, 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 plop. Like the whole belief system was based on the notion that Moon was the Messiah and was going to make the world a wonderful place. And once that was removed because he is a liar, I was done. The balloon popped. I was
Yeah, it
never
was like the
going.
domino. And I feel like with the economy, with Epstein, and now the cover up of these two murders of Alex Purdy and Renee Nicole Good, those are three massive fissure points for the majority to attack, to go on offense and widen these fissures, knock down two or three dominoes. And then, again, folks, everyone, I can't tell you what to do, how to behave. This analogy I've always given. Uh, I need the 70%. This is America. 30% of America always going to believe in nutty, self-destructive things. If you give me 70%, we can move mountains. Give me 70% of the caravan. I can't wait. The caravan has to move forward. But this is where the Muslim in me comes in, and the person who wants to be empathetic and realizes people make mistakes. The door to my caravan will always be open for the 30%. My hand will be outreached. It's up to you to grab my hand, right? So that's the only way, because I have limited time, I have limited efforts. I can't sit there and debate Nazis my whole life. The caravan has to move forward. Let me get the multicultural coalition. Let me get 70%, but the door will always be open.
So we share the Abrahamic tradition of an open tent, giving water, giving shelter to anybody who's coming our way. And I really respect you and I resonate with your attitude as well. I don't need people to accept and believe everything that I'm saying, but I have lived experience and I've done the academic studies and written the books that can actually teach people how to help loved ones get out of mind control cults. And um, once you're out, you become, I use the analogy, you're like a white blood cell in the body's immune system, to use your wife's training analogy. Like, we know what it's like to lose our freedom, and we're never going to let it happen again. So we're going to fight like hell.
Yeah, you probably get the resistance, right? Now you're like, oh my God, I'm out and I've built up the white blood cells and now I know. Everyone, folks, there's difference of opinions. You're like, it's you have to be nuanced and sophisticated. There's some individuals that I say, I can't debate you. What's my point in debating a Nazi? We have to destroy you. We have to crush you. Goebbels gotta crush you. Himmler gotta crush you. Hitler gotta crush you. But then there's the people who are caught up in the mass psychosis, who are your family members and your neighbors who have goodness in them, and in the last 10 years have lost their mind. Everyone has a different capacity of how much work they want to do. But there's the reality that I'm trying to impart, and don't listen to me, listen to Steve and Hassan, and look at history. History rhymes with Holocaust Remembrance Day, is that once, inshallah, enough people wake up from the mass psychosis, guess what? You're sharing the same space. So you need to give people some sort of an off ramp, and give them to a point where they say, "Oh wow, I can't believe." And I've talked to and interviewed formers. I've talked to former Nazis. I've talked to former white supremacists. I've talked to former KKK members. And what they said is what really made the crack is all politics are personal. When it started affecting them personally, and once they saw the hate seep onto their kids, and then once they saw the lie, the corruption, All of that kind of came together and like, shit, I was lied to. This is destructive. I can't impart this on my kids. And then once you give them an off ramp, this is why I think it's so important, right? Because if you don't give people an off ramp, and this is why I think it's also, and I want your thoughts on this, with just knowing human nature, Dr. Hassan, if you don't give people an off ramp, you don't give them a narrative of another possible future. And so what they say is, well, might as well tattoo "Born to Lose" on my head and go down with the ship.
Well, we are resonant with each other, and there was several points I wanted to make about what you were saying, but I want people to understand that we're on one planet. We want planetary survival. We are our brother's keeper and our sister's keeper, and that we want to, I think, look for the best in other people. And oh, this was the point I wanted to make, not just an exit ramp, but a face-saving exit ramp.
That's very important. Human nature. Expand on that, and I'll let you go soon. I promise.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I have a call scheduled with my son, but it's in another hour, so that's cool. No, the thing is change is not easy. And especially admitting you were wrong. Like my family said to me over and over when I was first getting recruited and indoctrinated, this is a cult. This is really bad. Don't drop out of college. Don't do it. And I was like, time will tell, and you will know that I'm doing God's will. And they were, just repeating the same thing that didn't work. And then I'm like, you were right. And I cried, Wajahat. I cried for 3 hours when it finally hit me that I had been duped and I had harmed so many people, recruiting people, helping Moon get a foothold in the United States. And the Moonies are still a force. I just
Yep.
want to mention that they own the Washington Times.
Yep.
Ann Nelson's book, Shadow Network, about the Council for National Policy, they put the first editor in place for the Moonies newspaper. The Washington Times is the single biggest climate science denial propaganda entity on Earth, according to David Lipsky, who wrote a book on climate science denial. And the Moonies are in bed with a Russian cult called Allatra. Have you heard of Allatra yet?
No. No.
Allatra. I wrote a Substack article. I made it free for people to read. They're working with a pastor, Mark Burns, and having meetings across the street from
Wow.
the White House in the Senate office buildings doing faith outreach, interfaith stuff, but it's just bad actors using religion and religious freedom as a cloak for their political machinations.
BBC had an article 3 years ago how high-profile scientists felt tricked by a group denying climate change. A dozen scientists, politicians, and campaigners said they have been tricked into participating in online events promoting climate change denial. Wow.
Yeah, but this is in 41 countries. They're infiltrating the EU, and I need media people to start messaging about this group because this is disclosure. Guess what, Wajahat? You don't know it, but I am the head of a global terrorist anti-cult network because I wrote The Cult of Trump. That's in one of their propaganda videos.
Wow.
I am
Very
the
powerful.
head
Very powerful.
terrorist because
Yeah.
I wrote The Cult of Trump. Yikes.
And folks, listen, it's fascists always engage in projection. They accuse you of what they do. So they've called Alex Preddy and Renee Nicole Good domestic terrorists. Classic. I do not want to end on this, but I like to keep my word. And someone mentioned this, and I don't want to go on in on this because I don't know, right? But they said, "Oh, why do you have Dr. Hassan on? He loads transgender people, and he's a turf." Do you want to respond to this comment?
Absolutely. So my primary care physician is a trans woman, has been for 20 years. I've interviewed trans people. I'm human rights. I've interviewed a trans man, Kinnan McKinnon, from my podcast that will be coming out shortly. And it's just, ad hominem attacks on me. Just check out my record.
check out the record. And someone said, yeah. So I mean, I need to know more. So I don't want to like open up this can of worms, right? I can't follow everything that everyone does, but someone posted a link to some podcast saying, oh, Stephen Hassan is a turf and this and that. So I don't, I wanted to give you a chance to respond. I'm glad you did. I don't have enough information, folks. And like Stephen said, check out his own record. Check out his own record, and it's out there. And then if you want to go back and debate, we could debate it. But there you go. So if you want to respond, go ahead.
No, I just interviewed a colleague, Rachel Bernstein, a therapist who's been helping cult members. She has two trans children. She mentioned it on the podcast. How I got labeled this Wajahat, in all honesty, was I started getting approached by detransitioners who had read Combating Cult Mind Control and said they felt like they were pressured into becoming trans. But I just interviewed them. I didn't write it up. I didn't go on TV talking about it. But I did
Mm.
do a retweet of a detransitioner on Twitter before it became X, and J.K. Rowling retweeted it, and
J.K. Rowling got you, man. She got
that's
you.
that's where the label got slapped on me, and no matter what I say or do.
No, thank you for being transparent. I appreciate it wasn't meant to be a left field gotcha. I just want to honor the community, and I promised one of the individuals who posted the link that I would ask it, so I did. I'm ignorant. I don't have enough information on it. So folks, the record's there. Go listen to him for yourself. And thank you for that. And thank you for that explanation. All right, Dr. Stephen, shamelessly promote yourself.
So, thanks a lot. I'd love to do more with you, Wajahat. Like I said, I think we are more alike in our thinking and our recommendations. I'm on Substack at Stephen Hassan. My YouTube is Dr. Stephen Hassan. And I have a course that I created online for psychiatrists, psychologists, and social workers to train people, because there's no graduate course teaching people how to do therapy with former cult members, whether you're born in or recruited into a cult. So my thing is just psychoeducation, and I say here's my ending. I say, with freedom of mind, it's your mind and only you should control it. That's my
That's,
that's my
I like that. And let me shamelessly, everyone, not everyone. I've been doing this for a while, and people are like, bring on Bandy Lee. I don't have her contact. I reached out to her through Blue Sky. I don't think she references it. So if you know her, and you can vouch for me, my community has asked to come, have her come on for a while. I'd love to talk to her. If you can connect us, if you feel like that's fine.
you just froze. I didn't hear
Oh,
the
I
name.
said if you can connect me with Dr. Bandy Lee, assuming you know her,
Oh, I
please
know her
connect us.
very well.
Okay.
Happily.
Yeah, a lot of the Left Hook subscribers are like, bring on Bandy, bring on Bandy. I reached out to her folks on Blue Sky. I don't think she responds. I don't have any contact. I think she had to like go on the DL a bit because she was at the forefront calling out the psychosis of
I'll
Donald
email
Trump.
introduce you, but trust me, I know her well. I've had her on my show and we work together. And she too is censored. We need mental health experts to talk about how to protect our minds, right? How to cope with this anxiety and stress and fear. And a lot of people are sleep deprived. And that's the first thing that I want people to pay attention to. Turn off your phone an hour to 2 hours before bedtime. Get it.
Oh, do you all see Dr. Steven kind of glitched on me? There, Steven, are you with me? You're in a really exciting action pose, but you're frozen. He okay, Frozen for you two guys? Yes, okay. So he was talking about take before you sleep. Oh, he went off. Okay, no problem. He was talking about before you sleep, 1 hour, get off your phone. It does interrupt and interfere with your sleeping habits and sleeping patterns. And yes, we in America are sleep deprived. And a Washington Post article that came out just about 2 weeks ago with a doctor who studies longevity, so gave five tips. One of them was exercise, of course. Another one was engage in new activities, mental creative activities. Third was, of course, socializing. And another one was diet, specifically the Mediterranean diet. And the fifth one was sleep. And he said, no matter what happens, no matter when I sleep, if it's 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 11 p.m., I make sure to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And if you're exhausted and overworked and tired and being just bombarded with propaganda, does this sound familiar, folks? You're susceptible to following a cult leader who, instead of identifying the real villain, which is the bro oligarchy, says, look at that poor Somali. Go after them instead of me, who's taking all your cookies. So we all have a role to play to deprogram ourselves and others. That was Dr. Stephen Hassan. I met him 11 years ago, gosh, when we were invited to this event in Aspen. He wrote this book, which is very relevant, called The Cult of Trump. It's more relevant now. He was in a cult, got out of the cult, and has spent 5 decades talking to people, helping people in communities on mental health, how people get in cult, how to deprogram cult members. I'll have this conversation up later today. I did some fantastic conversations today. I think 3, 4. Uh, uh, but I also have like a whole bunch of kids, so just be a little patient with me. And I have to like work out not to die. So I'll have them out. Really good conversation with my old friend Jessica Zwang, immigration attorney, who just I learned things about how the system, ICE, is operating exactly as it's designed to operate, and how what's happened to Alex Preddy and Renee Nicole Good is what's been happening, and how the genesis of this dehumanization and violence goes back to the 20s, and eugenicists who were so exquisite in their racism that they inspired Nazis. And then we also had a fantastic conversation with 2 members of the Union Theological Seminary, including historian, talking about the role of religious communities in combating fascism and why fascists always, always, always go after teachers, education, and culture. So I hope. Great Zen from Atlantis. Jess is amazing. Is she single? I'll ask her. Folks, he found his cat. Yes, Billu came home last night. Thank you all for the nice comments. Our cat was missing for 5.5 days during a snowstorm. And he just showed up yesterday late night. Poor guy has been sneezing. He looks a little traumatized. I don't know how this guy survived. My wife and I are like, this is a miracle. Like, how did he survive? He's a little bit skinnier. He's okay, but he looks a little shook. And he's been resting all day and all night. And he's been sneezing, and he's very loving towards me, but he's been extra loving. So I feel like I don't want to anthropomorphize a cat. He just seems a little traumatized and shook, knowing my cat. But he's back. Amazing. I don't know how he's back. So thank you all for asking. This is the Left Hook. You all know this. I have a special going on for the next 4 days. It's a January Terrible Capitalist special. Forever 25% off if you sign on and be a paid subscriber. It's the lefthook.substack.special. The lefthook.substack.com/special. I'll repost it. The lefthook.substack.com/special. $3.75 forever every month, $37 to $38 a year. I depend on the kindness of strangers and the community. If you have $3.75 and you think this is useful and what I'm doing is useful, thank you for contributing. If you have no money, times are tough. I get it. This is why everything is free. There, inshallah, will never be any paywalls on anything that I do, whether it's on the Left Hook or on YouTube. If you like it, please just like and subscribe. It's how the algorithm elves work. And just share the content with people you think could benefit from it. Thank you all. I'll put up all these talks later today, probably an hour or two. I hope you enjoy it. Tomorrow, fantastic conversations. I got Dr. Jason Johnson at 12:10 p.m. I got Brittany Packnett at 2 p.m. And we got Danielle Moody at 3 p.m. Zev wants to come on and talk about the latest on the Epstein files. So let me see if I can get on my 4 p.m. If I have time. And pray for me because I'm going to, I said yes to Piers Morgan. 11 o'clock. It's me, Tim Miller. I'm not the biggest fan of Tim Miller, but so far in the last couple of weeks, he's been good here on ICE. And even Bill Kristol, I give credit where credit's due. For a while, he's been saying abolish ICE. So the Bulwark crew is good on this. And we have, let me tell you who we're on with, allegedly. It's going to be fun. Officer Tatum. Who is Officer Tatum? He is former law enforcement who apparently supports all this, and he's a black man. All right. So, like a masochist, I've decided to go on. But you know what? I'm not going to sit there. I can't sit there and excuse the murder of Alex Preddy, or excuse the murder of Renee Nicole Good, and engage in both sides nonsense. So I'll say what I'll have to say. Hopefully, I'll have space and time to say it. Thank you all for watching. Be kind, be informed. If you can, please, inshallah, become a subscriber, a paid subscriber. At the very least, sleep, heal, rest up, and don't be a fascist.